Okay, welcome to the vlog. If you're new here, my name is Chris and I build productivity apps. I usually focus on one productivity app for video, and today we're going to be focusing on Ellie. For context, Ellie is a daily planning app. If I had to describe it in one sentence, it's basically your to-do list and calendar combined. So if you're someone who likes time blocking and planning your day, you should go check it out. Today, we're going to be working on this new feature. I'll show you a little preview. It's going to be this cool floating timer for my productivity app. You can basically track how much time you're spending on a task. So that's what we're building today. I wanted to try something a little different from this video. Usually my videos are on the shorter end. They're like 8 to 10 minutes long. I've honestly been a bit scared to make a video longer than 10 minutes because I'm worried you guys would think it's pretty boring. But I've got a couple comments like this one pushing me to make some more in-depth, longer content. So that's what we're going to try for this video. I'm going to go a little bit more in-depth, a little bit more technical than usual. If you guys like this, I'll make more longer videos like this. Okay, so let's jump into it. Let me first go over what my process is. So the first thing that I do is just assess the problem. I'm gonna try to figure out what do we have right now, if anything, what is the high level problem we're trying to solve, what are the options. So that's the first thing we're gonna do here. Okay, so Ellie has this feature, you can actually estimate how long a task is gonna take, and then you can also track how long it actually took to complete the task. Here we can see that, this task is gonna maybe take 45 minutes, and then I could manually log when I'm done and say, oh, this actually took me 2 hours to do. Ellie has a timer feature, so you can actually just track how long a task is gonna take directly in the app. So when I click the button, you'll see this timer appear. You can start and stop it, and then every time you stop it, it's going to automatically log that time directly onto the task. So it's super basic. That's what we got so far. So this is great. But what's the problem we're trying to solve? The problem right now is that it's really easy to forget that the timer is running. It's only running in the app. If you're multitasking and doing a bunch of stuff, it's really easy to forget. One solution that someone came up with that I really like is a floating timer window. Even if you're multitasking and switching between windows and doing stuff, it'll always appear maybe in like the bottom right corner or something. So you always remember that you should be working on this task, you're actively timing this task. And hopefully what this does is remind you to just stay focused and go back to this task. So at a high level, that's what we want to build. We want to build this floating timer window. It should be solving this problem of forgetting that the timer's running and getting distracted. Okay, now we know what we have. We actually have code for a timer. We have a timer that lives inside the app, and we know what we want. We want a floating timer window that floats above all the other apps, but basically has the same function as the timer we have right now. So I think we're good there, and I think we kind of know at a high level what we're trying to build. So that was the first step. This is honestly a pretty simple feature, so that step was really easy. For more complicated features, like let's say the notification system that I'm trying to build, the kind of high level assessment would probably take a lot longer. On to step 2. Next one I'm going to do is do some design research. So this is the part where I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is this actually going to look like? What is the design going to look like? What's the UX going to look like? Luckily, this is pretty simple because at least for the first version, I can kind of just copy what I have. I can literally just take this timer and then make it floating. I do want to do some research to see if there's any way that I can improve that. Let me go walk you guys through this process. So we're just going to go around the internet, look around, see if there's like a better way to do this, find some inspiration, basically just do some design research. One of the websites I love using is called Mogul, not sponsored by the way. It's like a collection of screenshots of different apps. Let's say you're looking for drop-down menus or date pickers or something like that, and you want to know how do all the other apps do it to get inspiration. You can just search for that on Mogul and it'll show you a bunch of screenshots. It's a little pricey, but I personally think it's worth it. It saves me a lot of time. Instead of having to go to the app store, download a bunch of apps, search for date pickers, I can just search date picker directly on here. Okay, fast forward, I just spent some time actually searching for different timers, looking for things I liked, and I actually made a collection of things that I like from different apps. Let me show you guys what I'm looking for and what gives me inspiration. So something I liked here from this, I guess this is built in Figma. I didn't know they have this. They have I guess they have a timer built in or something like that, but something I really, really liked was this style of timer. It looks like one of those stopwatches, and I love how like there's like a little background behind the actual text. I don't know if I'll actually do that or if it'll look good in practice, but it's something that caught my eye. I like it. Here's another one I really like in this app called Rainbow. I don't know what this is. They actually have a little circle, which I'm guessing kind of gets smaller as the time goes on. This is like a countdown timer. Mine is like a stopwatch timer, so it doesn't really apply here, but I still like this a lot. Maybe if I do a countdown timer, I'll actually, take something from this. For any distance, I really like the zeros here. This stood out to me. I don't know what font this is, but it did give me this like timer vibe, so maybe I'll try to find something that has a 0 with a slash. For Strava, I really like their stop button. It's really bold. I can also think of some really cool animations when you click it. That was something here. Alan Mind, I like how I'm assuming this thing, there's like a little animation thing going on here. Maybe I'll do something like that where, actually probably not, but like I did like how interesting that was. And then Opal, I was kind of interested in how they have like what I'm assuming is like a collapsed version here, because I can see you can expand it. Maybe for Ellie, they could have the name of the task, and little text will have the time that's passed. So these were some examples from Mobbin that I liked. I got some interesting inspiration. This is the kind of stuff that I do when I'm doing design research. Another thing that I do is I search on the App Store and I just like look around at different apps. They don't necessarily have to be timer apps. They could be apps that I would guess have timers, but let me show you something that as I was poking around the App Store that I did like. So I found this app, honestly not sure what it's called. What was interesting to me was I really liked their widgets. This screenshot caught my eye with their widgets because I was like, ooh, this kind of looks like a floating window and it looks really nice with this background in the back. To be honest, I did not consider doing a background until I saw this. This is the importance of like going out there, looking at apps, trying to get as much inspiration as possible because you'll never know what you'll find. Like I didn't have any intention of adding a background until I saw this and I was like, wow, that actually looks pretty good. I think I'm good right now. Again, this is a small feature. I don't think I have to do too much research here. I'm just gonna keep referring to these screenshots as references, but I think the design stage is done. So now we're gonna move on to a stage I call technical research. So I like to do two things during this technical research phase. The first is identify risks, figure out are there any challenges that I'm gonna probably face here? Is what I'm trying to build even possible? And the second thing is to come up with a rough game plan of breaking down all the features that I plan on building. So let's go through the first part, which is identifying risks. You might be like, okay, this is a super simple feature. Like what risks could there possibly be here? It's a timer, it's a floating timer. You already have timer code. This should be pretty easy. You know, I've seen a lot of other apps that have floating windows. So an example is Zoom. If you're in a Zoom call, you can actually make Zoom stick to the top. So if you switch to another app, Zoom will stick to the top. They also have this mini view where it's like a small Zoom window that collapses and it floats on top of all the other windows on your desktop. I kind of know that it's physically possible to do this, but now I just need to figure out with the tech that I use to build Ellie, is it possible to pull this off? So Ellie's using this thing called Electron for the desktop app. And if you didn't know what Electron is honestly, I don't even know if I can explain this correctly, but it's basically like a wrapper that wraps my React application, which is a web application, and allows me to package it as a desktop app. It also gives me access to a lot of desktop specific features. That's how I was able to pull off making the Mac menu bar, for example, which you can't do that with React. Because Electron gives you access to all of these things in the operating system, now I'm able to do that. So I need to figure out if Electron can do this. I actually have a theory Zoom might be using Electron, but one extra complication is I'm not just using Electron, I'm using this thing called ToDesktop. Honestly, Electron's not the easiest thing to work with, so I'm using this service. It's basically a layer on top of Electron. It takes care of a lot of things I hate about Electron, like auto-updating part, accessing like certain elements of Electron from my React app. I won't go into depth here, maybe I'll make a separate video, but it makes my life a lot easier. But that does add another complication to the project because now I have to make sure not only can Electron do this, but can ToDesktop do this? Because I'm accessing a lot of Electron stuff through ToDesktop. Since I'm using like basically a wrapper on top of a wrapper, I need to make sure that that outer layer wrapper, which is ToDesktop, can support some of the stuff that I want to do. So that's the biggest risk here is I need to make sure can ToDesktop do the floating window stuff that I want. That's what we're gonna do right now is just kind of research some things. So spend a couple minutes looking at this. It looks like ToDesktop can do a lot of the things that I want to do. Honestly, the documentation isn't the greatest, so it was kind of unclear if I could do some stuff. So I actually had to dig into their client library to figure out, do I have access to certain functions? I have access to like a lot of the things that I want, but there were a couple things that it looks like it's not physically possible. One example, I wanted to do something where you can click a button and maybe like resize the floating window. So maybe I'll have like a small version and then a medium version that shows more data. There is a way for me to expand and contract it. Negative is I can't lock it. So that means users will also be able to just drag it like between those two sizes, which like I don't want them to be able to do that. I just want to lock it to those two sizes. So it looks like something like that is not possible with ToDesktop. I actually reached out to their team to confirm and they said, yeah, you can't really do that, but we're gonna try to add something so you can do that. Hopefully they can add that in the next month, which would be cool. If I was using Electron, just Electron, not using ToDesktop, it looks like that would have been possible. This isn't really gonna have a huge impact on this project, but this is a risk that I've like outlined during research, but it looks like everything else is very possible. So now I feel comfortable moving on to the next part, which is coming up with a rough game plan for what we're gonna actually build. This is actually how I come up with like a game plan / roadmap. I have this concept, I'm pretty sure I didn't take this from anywhere. I think I just like made this up. So I call it the V5 strategy. Basically what I do is I kind of come up with, okay, what is the version 5 of this feature gonna look like? Another way to think about it is in 6 months to a year, what is this feature gonna look like? So I try to predict what that's gonna look like. I try to work backwards to come up with what does the V1 look like. The reason I do this is because I've probably shipped like 100 features at this point across all my apps, and there have been so many times where I get to like the V3 or V4, and I'm like, man, I really wish past Chris did this in V1 to make my life easier. I wish I structured the data differently the first time because now my life's a lot harder that I'm working on V4. I don't go too in depth with this, just at a high level. I basically try to make a couple decisions now to make V5 a lot easier in the future. So that's usually the process when I try to come up with like a rough game plan for what I'm gonna build. So I'm gonna come up with the V1 through V5 right now, try to figure out what these look like, and then basically just start building. So I'm gonna take some time, come up with the roadmap, show you guys, what I came up with. Okay, so here's what I got. This is the V1 through V5. This is what I think like the 5th iteration of this feature is gonna look like. I think the V1 of this feature would be just the floating window. Just being able to start and stop, just almost exactly like what we have right now, but a floating window. In my mind, if I can ship that, that's a great first version of this. The V2 of this, where once that's shipped, I want to be able to complete tasks directly from this floating window. That's something that doesn't exist in the current timer either right now. Like you can only start and stop the timer, but you can't really complete a task. And so a lot of people have asked for this. Third one, I think, I do really want to add background images to make this a little bit more personal. So I think V3, adding some more customization would be great. And then V4, I want to be able to let users expand this mini timer to have maybe like a medium-sized version that shows more details about the task, like maybe subtasks, notes, just like a bunch of other things. And I want users to be able to like expand and collapse that, but I doubt I'll be able to handle that in this video, especially if 2Desktop doesn't have the resize feature that I need. And then the 5th version is I really want some advanced customization. It'd be so cool if users can upload custom images. I'll probably have like a really cool gallery of different backgrounds, maybe even video backgrounds. That would be so cool to have right there, but that's probably like the V5 of this. So yeah, I basically outlined like, this is what the first version is gonna look like. This is what I think the 5th version is gonna look like. Now what I'm gonna do is kind of just, knock out the first version. If I make a lot of progress, maybe I'll even try to, do the next one. This is chopped up in a way where if I only get to V1 and only complete it, I'll be happy stopping. Like I can ship that, that's good enough, and then I can revisit, 2 through 5 later. Now we're done with the technical research phase, which was the 3rd step in my process of creating a new feature. Also, again, this is a really small feature, so the technical research phase, like for something like notifications, will probably take me an entire week to do. I'll probably even have to code some mini experiments to test certain things, but for something like a timer, this was pretty simple. This was probably like 2 hours of research. Okay, so the 4th phase is the design phase. This is where I usually mock something up, do some designs. For this feature, we're actually not gonna even do that. It's so small and I kind of already know really what this is gonna look like. I feel comfortable just skipping that. For this specifically, I also feel like I'll just be faster with code than I will be in Figma. Might as well just skip this and go directly into development. Okay, so let's start coding the V1 of this. So I got the floating window to happen. It honestly was not hard. 2Desktop made this really easy for me to pull this off. Let me show you guys how this works. So what I'm doing is when the app starts up, I actually am creating 2 windows. I'm creating the main app window that you see, and then I'm creating the floating timer window, but I'm hiding it. 2Desktop makes this super easy. I literally just created a new window here, and then I just made a bunch of settings where I remove those traffic lights that you see at the top, I remove the toolbar, I set the size automatically, and I set a couple things like always have this float, disable the right-click menu, all of these little settings that 2Desktop and Electron allow me to set. Creating the window was super easy. It really wasn't any code here. The next thing that I did was I made a little function here that shows and hides this depending on the user's setting. If floating timer has been enabled and there's an active timer, we're gonna show the window. And if it's not, we're gonna go hide the window. And so this function just lives in the app and it controls whether we show and hide it. And then here's the code for the actual window itself. It's super basic, just says hello world. And it's just like a few lines of code. So if I have an active timer and I change this user setting of, is the floating timer enabled, we now have the window appear and disappear, and it has this setting. One thing that I tried to do though was instead of, creating the window and then showing and hiding it, I tried to create the window and then destroy the window and then create the window and destroy the window. Something though that happened was whenever I created it, there was this startup time. And so there was just like a blank screen, all the data had to load, then the timer would appear. So, which was kind of jarring. Like I don't think users want that. They just, when they click the button, they probably want the floating window to appear instantly. I had to scrap all of that code and then go the method of just showing and hiding instead of creating it from scratch every single time. So that was a little roadblock. I probably wasted like an hour going that route. Learned a lot about Electron though, which was great. So now we have this floating window, which was the hardest part. So now let's actually try to get the timer inside of it. So this was a lot easier than I thought. It took like 30 minutes. I was able to paste a lot of the old timer code directly in here. So now we actually have the floating timer working and you can start and stop it. So now when you click stop, it'll hide the window and and log the time. And the way I have it working right now is you can enable and disable the floating window through the settings. If you toggle it off, then it'll stay within the app. If you toggle this on, it'll be in floating window mode. This is actually a pretty good V1, I think. If I shipped it here, this is a really great starting point. And I think this would solve the original problem we're trying to solve, which was, having the floating timer in the first place to try to reduce distraction. But I think that was a little too easy. So let's actually try to see if we can do the V2 of this right now. Maybe even part of V3. I'm gonna try to see if I can add some customization so users can customize the images. I don't think that'll be too hard. Let's see if we can actually do V2. So my YouTube channel is pretty new. I just recently started. I don't have a big following. I'm not really an influencer, but this was really cool. I wanted to share this with you guys. Sent me this free stuff. There's no strings attached. I didn't have to make this a video on them or anything. Obviously they want me to make a video, but I didn't have to. It's like a productivity shot, energy drink thing. I have no idea if it actually works, but I'm gonna try it out for a few days. I thought this was pretty cool. They sent it. So they sent over like 15 of these shots. I never had plans on doing sponsored products or anything like that. I wanted to unbox this here just so you guys can see and share this cool moment with you guys. I guess this was a pretty bad unboxing video. The chances of me actually doing a sponsorship, I think, are pretty low, but one reason I would do it though is if this company is willing to let me share numbers and like behind the scenes of working with them, I think that'd be pretty cool. So you guys can see how much someone gets paid for a sponsorship deal, how much that number changes as their subscribers grow, stuff like that. That'd be pretty cool. Probably low chance they'll let me share those numbers, but if they do, then I might actually do the sponsorship. Yeah, I'll let you guys know if I actually like them, so we'll see. But again, this video is not sponsored. They didn't ask me to do this. I'm not promoting them or anything right now. I haven't even used them. Just wanted to share this cool moment with you guys and also just say thank you guys for watching and thank you guys so much for all the support I've gotten on my videos. It's still kind of wild to me that people watch my videos. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you guys. All right, enough of that though. Good break. Let's get back to building. Okay, so I made a ton of progress on the V2, which actually wasn't too bad either. What I did was I added the ability to complete a task, but it was getting a little bit cramped because I decided to add a check mark right here and it just didn't look good. There was just too many buttons here. So instead what I did was decided to only show the pause button because I think pause is actually gonna be the most common action users are gonna be doing, to be honest. So, and then when you hover over the pause button, you'll see the other controls, which stop and complete tasks, appear as well. I added this really cool dark background so that the buttons pop a little bit more and then this animation where it comes out. I don't really know much about animations on the web, so I just asked ChatGPT to do it, and this is what it came up with, which looks pretty cool. I also read through and I understand the code. I customized a couple things like the speed. So now you actually have the ability to complete the task. While I was building the timer, I was actually using the timer. I noticed that when I completed a task, it was kind of jarring that when you complete it, the window would just hide and be destroyed. I mean, I could show like a notification saying, oh, task complete, but I don't really want to use the system notifications too much. I think that would get kind of annoying. So instead what I did was I added a delay. So when you complete a task, it's going to pause a little bit, show a message saying, oh, task complete, closing this window now. The users know, oh, the window's about to close, it's not a surprise, and then the task actually gets completed. I'm gonna go show a couple people what I got here because I want some feedback and let's see what they say. Okay, so I got a few people to test it. They absolutely loved it. One piece of feedback though was they wanted the ability when you mark a task as complete to auto move on to the next task. I had a feeling people were gonna ask for that, but I decided to just code it because it wasn't too hard. So now when you click complete task, it's automatically gonna search if there's another task after it, stop the timer for the current task, and then start a timer for this new task. Then gotta put the message in that says, oh, task complete, we're closing the window now. So I'm reusing that. So when you complete a task, it now says task complete, starting the next task. I don't think everyone's gonna like that, so I also just added a setting to disable that functionality. If you don't want it to auto move on to the next task, it doesn't have to. Last thing added to the V2 was some basic customization. So now if you go into settings, you actually have the ability to choose a different timer background. I decided to load up a couple of places. We have this really cool image of India, a really cool image of the Philippines, Kyoto. Now you can actually change that, which is pretty cool. Very basic. I have so many ideas of what to do with this. So I'm actually gonna hop on a call with a couple people and have them demo this thing and then see how they use it and get some more feedback. If they don't uncover any bugs though, I think this is a solid V2 that we can actually share. Okay, got some more feedback. Everyone loves this thing. It's pretty great. But someone did say that the images were a little bit distracting. They have ADHD, and a lot of people that use Ellie actually have ADHD. So I added an extra setting where you can have no background, so there's no image, it's just a solid black timer. Hopefully that's less distracting for people. And as I was personally using it, I decided to actually make a couple more changes here. So the first thing was I realized I hated having to go into the settings page to, enable and disable the floating timer. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna make it so you can actually toggle between floating and non-floating mode directly in the timer itself. I decided to make a component, so scrap the current timer. So now the timer you see in the app and the timer you see that's floating is the same code. It's the same timer. And I added this button where when you click it, it'll just change it to floating timer mode, or it'll change it to, in-app mode. That was not too hard, and I'm actually glad we're using the same code here. Yeah, so I think this is actually in a pretty good place right now. If you look at our V1 through V5 list, we're basically at the V3 right now. So I'm gonna ship it as is just so users can start using it. I can collect some feedback. But something I'm like really debating doing right now is there's some really cool images that I really want to support. I'm actually debating building out the gallery part from V5. What I'm envisioning is different categories of backgrounds. So maybe we'll have like a geography category. So it'll be all the different cities. I can have like a nature category with scenes of nature, maybe like a movie category or like a lo-fi category or something. I just wanted to make like a simple gallery that had like a little bit more options for users. I feel like that extra element of customization will push this feature over the edge. I think I'm gonna wrap it up for today and then just try to build that out tomorrow. I'm like super happy with the progress with this. I really like how this feels, and I think a lot of people are gonna find this thing useful. So I think I'm just gonna call it for now, then I'll pick this back up tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next day. I was actually able to make a ton of progress on this revamped background picker. Let me show you guys what I got. So before we just had this drop down, it had a couple basic options. I think the worst part about this is you can kind of tell what the backgrounds are by the names, but you can't really see what it looks like. This is the new version. At the top, we actually have a little preview so you can see what the timer is gonna end up looking like with the background you selected. And then you have a bunch of different options here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I decided to add 5 different categories. First one's just solid colors for people who don't want a background and if it's distracting. Places, animals, plants, and then abstract backgrounds. And whenever you select the background, you'll see this preview update in real time. Where I got the inspiration for the design was actually the Apple settings. I used the wallpaper settings page as inspiration, so you can kind of see that they look a little bit similar. I decided to just code it directly because it was pretty straightforward. Code is really, really simple. And then if you're curious, this is how I structured the data for this. So it's all just hard coded so I can keep updating this, just separating everything out into categories. And then each of these things has an ID. And then I have this massive object that has all of the metadata for each of these things. I can specify things like the image URL, the name, and then I'm not using this right now, but you can specify like the text colors. For certain backgrounds, maybe white looks good. For others, maybe a darker text would look good. So I'm really happy with this, but I'm actually gonna spend a couple days just looking through the internet, finding some images to use. When I roll this out, I want every single image to be amazing. And once I'm happy with that, then we're gonna roll this out. So what I ended up learning with this feature was actually getting way more comfortable with Electron and 2 Desktop. I had to really dig into the Electron documentation to figure out how to show and hide this timer. I'm gonna take these learnings, and a lot of the stuff I'm using here is probably gonna power a future feature that I have in mind, which is quick capture. Global quick capture is actually something that's been highly requested. So this is the ability you can hit a shortcut like Command-Shift-A or something like that, and then a little window is gonna appear where you can quickly just jot down a task. We actually already have this in the web version. I don't really advertise this, but if you hit Q, you'll see a bar appear. I think I can take this to another level and actually make this a global thing. So even if the app is closed, even if you're in another window, you can summon this quick bar anytime. I think that was the biggest thing that I learned, was just Electron. I'm gonna wrap the video up here. If you guys like this kind of content, definitely check out my TikTok and Instagram. I post every other day about building productivity apps. And obviously, if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.